what attracts women to men. Are you comfortable being you? Are you going somewhere? And are you having a good time getting there? When you are in the presence of somebody that trusts themselves, I'm not guessing a lot. That creates safety. Do we feel comfortable asking for what we want in deep relationships? And then can we just say, thank you for asking for what you want. I'm a no to that now, and I love you.
You and Tatiana married 16 years. Has it been like that for the duration?
Yeah. I didn't know this was a comedy show. Boundaries are not for other people. They're for me. You're not allowed to talk to me that way. And then she'll say it again another time, and I'm like, what the fuck? And the minute I try to control her, then it all falls apart. What now happens, I can say to her, I really love you, and I can see that you're activated. And I say it genuinely. So I'm gonna take some time. You can talk to me any way you want. That's your right. I get to do what I want with that. Boundary is so I know how to act. And I could also see how people who don't have good boundaries don't want you to ask for big things because they don't know how to say no.
That's a challenge for me. I don't identify what I need. It all comes back to the balance of still being that provider and not having that be my sole identity.
A great identity and so much more than just that. Most people build a business and go, how do I fit my family in this? And in Front Row Dads, we're like, what family life do you want? Now let's build a business that supports that. And I want guys to be massively successful financially, make a difference in the world. I just don't want them to do it at the expense of their family.
It's like when it's all said and done, I just want to be a great dad. Oh man, this has been a long time coming. I forget how long ago we got connected. But I know maybe a couple years ago we were trying to coordinate something and we both got busy. And then we were able to get together maybe 6-8 weeks ago. Actually, it's been a little bit with Daniel and Sean from Update, and what a great group of people we were with that night.
It was so fun.
Yeah. How did you get to connected with them?
Josh.
Yep.
Yeah. I was at Josh's house. And we were just doing what we do, and then led to that.
Awesome.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
Great group.
Great group. Yeah. I just had Kristen on the podcast last week. Yeah, she came on last week. She was awesome. Like, great, like, cool story. Like, she's been through it. Yeah, she's a badass though.
I have so much respect when you sit with somebody and learn their story. I also recognize how judgmental I can be.
Mm-hmm.
The natural part of me that feels like I know this person. Like, you think you know them so quickly, and yet you start digging and you're like, I have no idea. There's so much richness to this person.
There's like one detail that just turns everything. You're like, I'm a fucking piece of shit.
I was with somebody recently, and there was some commentary around how this person would ask for so many things in their life, right? They would just ask boldly. And then I learned through digging and asking questions and listening to their life story that they actually used to never ask for anything, and then had a breakthrough that they were worthy of asking for what they wanted. And then I could see the whole thing with so much more clarity, who they were, how people responded. And I could also see how people who don't have good boundaries themselves don't want you to ask for big things because they don't know how to say no.
Yes.
So it's like, please stop asking for what you want, because I actually don't know how to protect my own energetic field. I don't know how to say no to you. I don't know how to stand up for myself. So please, you stop. If you control yourself better, I will not have to control myself.
How do you sit with that whole thing? Because that's a challenge for me.
Yeah.
I don't ask for necessarily what I need. I just sent a text to a friend today to ask for a couple tickets for something where I didn't know what he's going to say, but I think he would be like, dude, are you serious? Of course. Like, whatever you need.
Yeah.
And I'm like pussyfooting around, like not sure how to work, like just giving him every out in the book.
Yeah.
And why is that so difficult? I mean, again, we were talking about this earlier, but that's one of the things I struggle with. I hate that this is a common theme in the podcast lately, but in asking what I need in my relationship with Peyton.
Yeah.
And it starts before that because I don't identify what I need. So I don't do that. you skip that step. There's nothing to share with your partner when that's all she wants to know. How can I show up for you?
Yeah.
And so she's guessing.
That's right.
And in the guessing, I can get annoyed because I'm like, well, just I'm fine. Leave me, whatever the language is, leave me alone. She's like, I just want to support you. You look like you're struggling. You won't say a goddamn word about it. So let me just try to figure it out. Just, I guess, like we would do or I would do. And so just thinking about, it all comes back to, for me, a lot of this, the balance of, still being, that provider and being okay being that and not having that be my sole identity. And that's where I've struggled lately.
Yeah. An identity, a great identity, and so much more than just that.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to how do you sit with the boundaries around that? Do you ask for what you need?
And sometimes.
Yeah.
I think there's rarely a time when I think that one declaration, understanding, breakthrough, belief applies in all scenarios. Like it's too nuanced.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are many times when I think I've asked, and I've done that from a place of, I should be able to ask for what I want and without any consideration for how that might land for somebody else. Yeah. I don't think that's necessarily a healthy approach. Mm-hmm. And there are times when if I'm attuned to my own needs and I'm attuned to my surroundings, that I can ask with integrity. And to me, that is, if I have the belief that I am God, you are God, there is oneness that exists between us, that I benefit and you benefit when I consider the energetic frequency, who you are as a human, who I am as a human, and I take all that into account in the attunement of my ask. To me, that feels resonant. I don't always do that. Sure. But when I do, it feels really good. And so there's also agreements to that too, like in deep relationships, especially with Tatiana. It's wonderful to have discussion around, do we feel comfortable asking for what we want? And then can we just say, thank you for asking for what you want? I'm a no to that now, and I love you. If that's the energetic signature of that engagement.
Have you and Tatiana, over this, you've been married 16 years, right? Has it been like that for the duration? Yeah. You can throw me a bone here.
I didn't know this was a comedy show. This is, yeah, okay. Yeah. We've more screwed that up than we have gotten that right. Absolutely. Our dance has been very dynamic. We have walked a thin line of separating many, many times. Mm-hmm. Even recently in the last 12 months, I was looking at a second home. Like we were right there. And actually in love, like this idea of breaking up in love, breaking up, right? Because I love you and because I love myself. And I recognize that there are things maybe in our relationship that are not healthy for us to stay together. And yet, even considering that and looking at that and sitting with that reality, we came through that, what you could call it a storm, and landed in what is probably the sweetest place we've been in our 16 years right now, which is also beautiful.
Wow.
I think sometimes the game in marriage, at least, is just stay in it for a moment, through your feelings, through her feelings or their feelings. And oftentimes it's just not giving up in the moment.
Yeah, I've Peyton and I have definitely experienced some of those moments. And I think the first time it happened, it was such a relief. And I'll just speak for myself. I just let go of this idea that we're supposed to be married for the rest of our lives. And in doing that, it released a lot of tension around me trying to hold it together from my end. And it took like the weight of that whole idea of this is for forever. In coming through that, um, I'm proud of the commitment we've made to stay in it and see it through when it's been fucking brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand why people pull the ripcord. I've thought of it. She's thought of it. Like it's the type of thing where for me, it's a bit of a impulsive reaction. Like this will rid me of like whatever this tension is right now. Yes, it will in the moment. And I know that I'm being called to much deeper work from her. And that's terrifying. But she wants so much more for me than sometimes I can wrap my head around. And that's very weighty. And it's easier to run from that.
Yeah.
It's easier to get go balls deep in work, to get involved in other things that don't strike at that vulnerability of like you're being called to be a much greater man than you are right now. It's like, fuck, I thought I was doing all the things I was supposed to. It's like, yes, you were in some of those areas, but there's a much greater ask right now.
Yeah. Big time.
Yeah.
The metaphor for us has been dancing. For years, Tatiana has begged me to dance with her. And
like literally dance?
Literally dance, like partner dance, like lead her on the dance floor. She has asked me for years about this.
So is Peyton.
Yeah. And I've resisted. And we could talk all about why that is and my, the junior high Jon Vroman of like, what do I do with my hands? And is everybody looking at me? That person. All the way up to just feeling overwhelmed with life. And like, you want me to, so I'm the provider. I need to do this. I need to do that. And you want me to learn how to dance. Like, this is just not, and I don't love it naturally. So it's hard for me to lean into that. And this past, about 6 months ago, I was at a retreat with our group and I was sharing this story and about my relationship with Tatiana, and ultimately ended up committing to the group that I would learn how to partner dance in the next 6 months. And that I would dance in front of the group at our next retreat, which was last month.
Ooh.
And so I did. I learned how to partner dance. Tatiana showed up and I danced with the group. I danced with her in front of the group, and it was a profound experience. And so many men walked up to me afterwards and like, my wife's been asking me about this. I'm going to lean in. I'm going to commit. That was beautiful to see Tatiana's reaction to you. That was an incredible moment. But the metaphor of the dance, I think, is so beautiful for us because there is I want to control many things that are not healthy in the relationship to try to control. And yet on the dance floor, our roles are very clearly defined that I'm the leader on the dance floor. And we get to step into this space where she completely surrenders. Her learning in this process of us partner dancing was that she had to let go. She had to let me lead. She had to trust me fully. And as a leader, I had to attune to her body. I needed to see how much movement was available. Where did she feel? How much pressure did I put with my hand? Too much, not enough. Too much, she feels like I'm just ripping her around the dance floor. Not enough, she doesn't know where to go. And that is such a beautiful way to look at our dance outside of the dance floor in our energetic life, our parenting life, our marriage, our shared reality. And so learning how to literally dance with her has been transformative in our relationship.
Wow.
Been awesome.
So how does that work for you? Like we were talking before we got on, this idea that within the family, you are the leader.
Yeah.
And, we were talking about like it's a huge responsibility.
Huge.
That oftentimes, I can turn away from that because it feels heavy and a lot, especially when I'm piling other things on. How has that helped you step into that role?
I don't know who to credit for originally saying this. I heard it decades ago, but it's this idea of being a thermostat or a thermometer. And in your home, you're one of the two. You're either setting the temperature in the room or you're reacting to the temperature in the room.
Oh, wow.
And so many times I've been reacting, that if things aren't organized or together, or people aren't responding to me the way that I think they should respond to me, or it's not going the way I think life should happen, I get very resistant to that, builds up tension, my nervous system gets dysregulated. And when I can have a strong back and open front, when I have found ways to be confident in myself, to trust myself, that I then can show up and be somebody who is the nervous system of my home. I reckon, I don't actually want to recognize how much power I have in my relationship with Tatiana. True story, this happened 2 days ago. There was a rub, there was some friction, and she got very angry. She would tell you this exact same story the same way, by the way. She got very angry and she said, last night at dinner with friends, I was ready to go to war with Jon. Like, I was angry and I was ready to go to war. And I knew that. And I recognized that my pattern in the past was to go to war with her, right? There was a control, there was a righteousness, there was a masculine energy that's like, you want to go battle? I'm here for that. And I would even say that to people. When she rises up as a warrior, the warrior within me rises up and I'm like, this is it. This is it. We're on.
Yeah.
And what I recognize now is that part of my warrior, my masculine, my solid self can bring humor to her, can bring softness to her. And I very quickly diffused her, not in a, I wasn't joking. I wasn't making fun of her. That wasn't the lightness. It was a playfulness in, I love you so much. We don't need to hate each other. And she felt that and immediately melted into me. And I mean immediate, like within hours, it was done, gone, and we were back to normal. Our ability to repair quickly has happened because, and she would tell you if she was sitting right here, because Jon decided that's what was going to happen. Now, she plays a role, of course, but if I'm taking my responsibility, I can set the temperature very quickly and it changes. And I love knowing that.
So how did you come through to this? Because I'm hearing this. I'm putting myself in, your shoes and Peyton and Tatiana's and thinking, like, I shut down rather than go in. I mean, sometimes I'll tussle, but I'm more avoidant, shut down.
Sure.
I'm sure it's from my childhood of like, being out of dad's sight. I'm not going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
And so I'll make myself invisible in those moments when I really need to lean in. It's funny. It's like I had done a medicine ceremony in the spring. It's the first one I'd done in quite some time. And I had a really challenging time on one of the nights. And I spoke to the facilitator about it. And he reminded me that in those moments, you need to find your center. You need to lean in. You need to find your breath. And if necessary, speak a mantra. I am safe. I am good. Whatever that is. And so the next night, the same experience was unfolding, and I stayed with those principles, and I kept getting knocked off my spot, and it was hard, but I kept coming back to them. And finally, like, I busted through to this just beautiful, like, very novel experience. And it was a reminder that those are the same principles in my life. That, like, what is keeping me from finding my center, leaning in, finding the breath is like not just an add-on. Like, I know that I can hold it really high and short breath. She can even, Peyton can even tell, like, are you pursing what's going on right now? You're pursing your lips. I'm like, I got something stuck in my teeth, which sometimes is the case, but generally, like, I'm figuring out my defense.
Yeah.
What allowed you to go from whatever maybe was your maladaptive state to be able to do these things and show up and know what it was going to allow this to be dissolved and you and Tatiana to come back together?
Seeing her through God's eyes. Yeah, seeing her through God's eyes. I was at dinner. I want to give credit to, do you know Chris Smith? Family Brand, Possibility Co. Great dude.
It doesn't ring a bell.
We're at dinner together, just the two of us, and he's telling me a story about his own life and the wisdom that he had received of seeing somebody through God's eyes. And I, especially recently, you and I spoke earlier about the passing of Jon Vroman, and that had a profound impact on my life. Jon and I were very close, groomsmen in his wedding type of close. And I had never lost a close friend like this before. And I would have said to people, as many do over the years, that I'm a spiritual person, but not a religious person. There are things I love about spirit. There are things that don't feel good to me about certain religions and rules. And I remember sitting in my sauna the day after I knew that Jon had passed, and I was praying and connecting with Jon. I'd never done this with any other human. I was literally like, Jon, talk to me. And we talked. And there were things that came from that conversation that brought me closer to what I'm now calling God, which to me, when I say God, I'm just making sounds with my mouth, right? We're all just making sounds with our mouths, trying to articulate these visions of what they are. And to me, life force and spirit and that which I can't quite grasp or understand, I'm referring to as God, this prayer, this conversation that I'm having where I'm receiving wisdom, a download. Again, all just words we're making to try to articulate this feeling. And this has been a deepening for me of my faith, my interest in spirit at a level that I've never experienced in my life. And so you and I both have done a lot of work. We've read a lot of books. We've had a lot of coaches. We've been to a lot of events. I'm super grateful for all of that. It's all played a role. And Tatiana and I have been in hundreds of counseling sessions. We've had different types of counselors, and it's like, this is the framework, and John Gottman's work, and all this beautiful work, right? All these ideas. Nothing has transformed my relationship more, and I mean this, than seeing her through God's eyes. And what that means to me is that God, as I experience God, is not judging Tatiana for any of what she says or does. Not in judgment of that. It's like, oh, here's this being having an experience. It's obviously afraid of something, obviously wants something, right? Just doing the best she can. She's got some trauma that's causing this. She's got some unresolved issues in her world that's causing this. Her nervous system's dysregulated. And the minute I would go, how would God see this human? It's with love and compassion and understanding, and also like unattached to the experience. It's not just about me, and it's all about me. Yeah. And so the minute I do that, I am not defensive. I do not want to be at war. I want to hug her and just hold space for her. And not even with the goal of trying to change her or control her or get her to be a different way, but as a God would just accept this moment as it is and this human as this is. And that's changed everything. That's been the path to where we are. So I look at it in my own life as moving from fight to flow. So much of what I've been in the past has been fighting energy, right? And combat. And now I'm in flow energy, which is just working with whatever you have. It's dance, it's improv. It's like when the person turns, you just know what to do with your body. And the music of life and your partner is constantly evolving. And ultimately you can only ever do your best in any given moment. And it starts to sound like a platitude, but that's what it is. That's my reality.
Is it as simple on the one hand as saying how would God react? What would God do in this moment? Do you literally ask yourself that question or some version of that question?
How can I see Tatiana through God's eyes right now?
Yeah.
The second I do that, I see her differently.
It's like you can't unsee that, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's not to me about a religion either.
Mhm.
It's, look, I think Jesus is a remarkable, leader, right? I think you could make a great case for that. And there are countless people who in this world, however you see them, can be great examples of compassion and love. But this is a energetic question for me. How would life force see this human? And it is with total acceptance of what is.
Yeah, I mean, your kind of experience with faith and spirit relative to religion and kind of more organized, like that's very resonant for me. And so to hear you speak of that, and it's kind of where I've landed in some ways is when I'm my best self, I do see the God I see it in everything that everyone is like literally doing the best that they can with what they have. Like, and if I had all the experiences that you've had, I would be acting the exact same way. And it just, I don't touch that nearly enough. And I love this simple reminder. And I mean, geez, I suppose I bring it up now. We can decide afterwards if it's an overshare. We were talking about, you were asking me kind of what over the last week, like what is the kind of predominant emotion that I've been feeling? And I don't know if I quite answered what the emotion is, but I know that what came up for me was that I'm often judging uh, when I walk into a room and Peyton's there, her energetic state relative to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm that little boy who, am I in trouble? Not that I feel like I've done anything wrong in that moment, but I'm also a little boy and I'm very present with like whatever's going on right now. I forget what I may have done earlier or not done something, and where she, she's been a great reminder of things that I've forgotten about, right? Uh, and so when I feel her energetic state being really positive and playful and loving, okay, I can relax. Like I'm good. I'm safe. And when she's not necessarily feeling that way, I make the assumption that it's because of me, something I've done. That's not necessarily true. But when I show up that way, I know that I'm not making it any better.
Yeah.
My nervous system's off. So she's feeling that. And now I've almost brought myself into the whatever's going on with her. I've injected myself into that. I'm also calling that forward, like I'm asking for it. I'm creating a space where I can quote unquote be in trouble. And so it's so like such a mind fuck when I try to unpack this thing. But it is something that I struggle with. And so I was sharing this with you, and you brought up that we both this week had Dr. Robert Glover on the podcast, and his book was really could be instrumental for me to work through some of this stuff.
Big time.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. And he and I, in the conversation, he was talking about what's attractive about a man, and I asked him, I said, what attracts, women to men in a relationship even, right? Or you could say the dating part too, but it's, are you comfortable being you? Are you going somewhere? And are you having a good time getting there? Right? That's what attracts a woman to a man.
All right, let's say it one more time, just so people don't have to, they can rewind if they want to, but I want to hear it one more time.
So are you okay being you, right? Is Cal okay being Cal in his skin? Is Cal going somewhere? Does Cal have a vision for his life? And then is Cal having a good time getting there? That's very attractive for any human. Even for me to be around people that they trust themselves. And the reason that's so attractive is that when you are in the presence of somebody that trusts themselves, you can trust that. That creates safety. I trust that if there's something on your mind, you'll know it, and that's safe for me. So I'm not guessing a lot. So you know yourself, you have a vision for your life, and you're going somewhere, right? Or you're having a good time getting there. And I think that when in my relationship with Tatiana, that where I am the most attractive to her is when that's true. Jon's good with himself, and he's very clear, and he wants to go somewhere, and he's enjoyable along the way. There's so many moments in my relationship where I was playing games and didn't even realize it. And I'll give you an example of what that looked like. We were playing volleyball one time down at Zilker, and Tatiana had just got back off a trip. And I was there with her and our younger son. And she's like, I'm going to go take a walk with a friend at Zilker, and I'm going to leave our youngest here. And I was in the middle of a volleyball game. And I said to her, no problem, as long as Ocean isn't bothering the game, right? Now, I said that knowing that Ocean was going to interrupt.
Oh, yeah.
But I said it like, you can go, even though I've had the kids for like weeks and you've been on a trip, and now so all this is happening in the back of my head. Now you're going to go walk with a friend. You're leaving Ocean with me. I'm in the middle of a game. So you don't respect that I'm in a game. You don't respect that I had the children for the last couple of weeks. You're not seeing this, and I am. And so I teed it up with, if you go, as long as he doesn't bother me. Yeah. So of course, what happens? He starts bothering me. And then I immediately go to her, frustrated and angry, which I had already written the story in my head. Yeah. I knew this was going to happen. Yes. Well, now he's bothering me. You're out here. You're on. Now, that is a man who I was not being honest with myself and with her. I was playing a game, because what I could have said is, hey, sweetie, I have a concern that he's going to interrupt the game. Would you please take him with you? Instead, I created a lot of drama in our relationship.
So that you could say,
I'm right. Yeah, I just played it out in my head. I could give you countless stories like this.
Me too.
There was another one and Tatiana's a total free spirit, doesn't know that a clock exists, completely in the moment, absolutely inner feminine, like just awesome, right? And all the time. And it's so attractive to me when I allow myself to be attracted to it. When I try to turn her into a masculine, that's where we run into problems. So one time we're sitting on the couch and she said, hey, I'm going to go walk the dogs. And I said, hey, I would really love tonight and I was practicing asking for what I want. I was like, I would really love if you could rub my shoulders. And she go, baby, I'd love to. I'll do it when I get back from walking the dogs. And I thought, she's going to forget, right? In my head, already made up the story. She's going to forget. And so I said, cool, what time? Now I already know I'm setting her up for failure. She doesn't do time. I go, what time? She goes, 9 o'clock. And I go, cool, 9 o'clock, we'll see you for the massage. I already knew, right?
Yeah.
And sure enough, she's out, she's walking the dog, she's totally lost track of time. And at 9 o'clock, I'm like, here we go. I'm right. She's not here. And I was like, I'm not even tired, by the way, but I'm going to go to bed. Yeah. I'm going to go to bed so that when she comes home, I'll be in bed, and then maybe she'll feel terrible and she'll never do it again. Like, I'm playing this whole game out in my head. I'm going to go to bed. And even went as far, this is true, by the way, I'm like opening up and being like, this is how crazy I can be, folks.
This is how crazy we can all be, by the way. I get this.
I was like, I need to hurry and get in bed because she comes home. I need to make sure that I'm sleeping.
Yes.
And then she came into the room and turned on the lights, and I even pretended that I was sleeping.
Yes.
Dude, and after this whole thing, I literally called myself out to her. I pulled her aside and said, babe, I have to reveal myself to you. Here's what I just did. And I said, what's wild is it's my I'm watching myself do this in a desperate desire to control my environment, to get connected to you. And I'm willing to like manipulate the situation and lie to myself and lie to you in a cry for like, I just want to be touched and I want to be touched now. And because I'm not getting it, I'm trying so hard to manipulate my environment. And so what has happened, and this all goes back to where we originally started this, which is, can I trust myself? Can I trust myself to get me, to hold space for myself, to ask for what I want, and then be more unattached to what happens in the outcome? So what I've learned to do, so you go, what's different, Jon? What have you learned? Well, how is life now? What I would do is I would actually like grab this cool massage device that I have, and I would actually start digging into my shoulder or take a little cork ball and roll against the wall, and I would take care of myself. I remember going to parties with Tatiana, and I would be so like, she's dancing on the dance floor and not giving me attention. And I'm like, well, I just want to be with my wife, and she's off dancing on the dance floor. And I would, and I would in an unhealthy way sometimes go try to get love from other people, get attention, and it was so much like me trying to control my environment that recently I was at a gathering and I thought, oh, I'd love to connect. Tatiana's in a conversation. I'm not feeling loved or connected or seen. And I remember putting my hand on my heart and I just closed my eyes and I said to myself, I go, I got you, man. I got you. And it was beautiful. And then next time I see Tatiana, I'm not resentful. It doesn't have this energy of like, you ignored me. You're on the dance floor. You don't even know I'm here. And I'm just like, hey, baby, what's up? And I come to her with full love because I just took care of me. I was like, I got me. The more I got me, the more solid I am, the more attuned I am, the more able I am to fulfill my own needs in many ways. I'm able to ask for what I want and then not be attached to it. It is a beautiful dance.
I love that. There's almost like this tipping point of like being able to care for your own needs, and I've taken it to an extreme where I try to take care of all my own needs. That's self-reliance, right? And so how do you create the space so that you're not like that guy who has to take care of all the things yourself to prove to yourself that you can do it?
Yeah. I'm definitely not that guy anymore. I used to be. This is all on my shoulders. I've got to do it all. And it's always a yes and. In almost every game, in almost every conversation, I don't want to say everything, but I'm hard pressed to find a place where yes and isn't the answer. It's like, yes, that's true. I put my hand on my heart. I got me. It was good. There's so much of that. And there's also so much of just being able to know that it is a lovely way to go through life when you can do it together, co-creating, the support of others, because there's lots of ways that I can ask for what I want and receive it. I do it in business all the time with partnerships. I do this with, getting a massage, paying for a massage. Like if what I really want is physical touch and I'm not wanting to just like massage my own shoulder, I can go connect and have a wonderful massage session, right? That's a beautiful way to do it. There's so many ways to receive. And I ask all the time. I don't always get for what I ask for, but, and sex is a great example of that. There is for sure a way that I could, pleasure myself. And yet there's a way that I want to be with my wife. And I'm not in control of whether or not she wants to be, sexually intimate with me. So I can ask, I can create environments for intimacy. I can do my part to flirt and play and play in a way that creates desire, but I can't always get what I want. And so sometimes it's a matter of just accepting what is. We go through seasons in our marriage where sometimes she's very sexual and sometimes she's not. Sometimes we have lots of sex, sometimes we have very little sex. But I have to just find ways to be okay myself and ask for partnership where it's healthy. In business, in life, with children, in almost anything.
I want to talk more about what this new season has been like for you. And I think, you were saying earlier that like a lot of it kind of hinged upon the passing of your dear friend Jon Vroman. And I'm curious, like, and I know there was a lot in play beforehand that you've been doing the work for a long time and been very intentional about that. And I'm just curious, like, you seem to have popped through to this new place. What was the old place like? What's the new place feel like? Like, whatever makes kind of the most sense. I'm just so curious because I feel like, and someone just shared this with me a week or so ago, someone that knows me very well. She's like, I feel like you're peeking out, like you're close to like me personally popping through. And so I'm inspired to just understand better, not in the hopes of trying to get through, but like, how can
I wonder what they see in you. Did you ask that? What are they seeing that's indicating that you're like?
I think I'm asking the right questions. I'm drilling down on my wounding. It keeps coming up. It's like right there for me. Just haven't just hasn't quite. And as I was sharing before we got on, that I'm in this much longer season of this awareness, um, within like some financial things that I became aware of where our dear friend Justin Donald came on the podcast. And as I said, I equated it to going into a medicine ceremony where it's like you go and you have the medicine, you're like, oh, I get it. I see it. And I saw it. I saw it in the podcast very clearly. And the most important part, arguably, is that integration period. And while I would love the integration period to have been a week after the podcast with Justin, we're coming on 8, 9 months, whatever it is. There's been a lot that shifted for me, and I haven't quite grasped the lessons I need to so that this pattern doesn't repeat itself, because it has happened before and I didn't quite learn what I needed to learn. And so this is one that I think is my intuition tells me it's being extended from a time point of view and has gone a little bit deeper than I would have preferred, so that I think I really heal whatever it is that is creating that. And that comes back to this idea of, again, being the provider, never wanting to not be able to provide anything that my family may desire. And like, that's not actually what they want either. And so it's all connected. This financial, the discomfort, and it stems from that ego piece. And like, I'm being called to live more in my soul's purpose. And there's a place for doing the things I've done. It's just, it's taking up too much of who I am right now. And I think getting back on that soul's journey, it creates a lot of clarity around not just the financial piece, but more importantly, my relationship with Peyton. And again, what she's calling me forward to. And I think the more I talk about it, the less kind of weightiness, the less intensity. I can just see it. Like, it's almost like I'm making it a big deal and it's not a big deal. And like, just get through, get over, heal, whatever the proper thing is, but like, step into that next season of who you are.
Yeah. It feels right. You're at a good time in your life to do that. I see that a lot with men that I work with and that I'm connected to, is they've achieved some level of success. They've been able to provide. They've done a few things. Their kids might be growing up a little bit, and it's natural to ask these questions. I think it's the perfect time in your life. I was with Chip Conley recently from Modern Elders Academy.
Yeah.
Spent a week with him.
Wow.
And just talked a lot about this middle-aged, he shared with me that, a man in his 40s, that statistically, like research has said, that is the hardest decade of a man's life. Their happiness is at the lowest in their 40s. And there's a lot of reasons why. We could unpack why that might be.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand that in some ways, that I feel like I am on a beautiful escalation into a soul-driven, spirit-driven life that feels so good at my core.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at what's causing some of that, one is sobriety. And we could look at that word in many different ways, but to me, sobriety means not using things to distract myself from hearing my truth.
Mm.
So I would use, in the past, I remember sitting in my couch watching a movie with headphones on, with my laptop in front of me, just grinding, like trying to watch a movie and build on the laptop, and just stimulus coming at me from all angles with a cup of coffee in my hand. More, I want to know more. I want to see more. I want to experience more. Just all this external stimulation. I could not take a walk, do anything without having an audiobook on. It was like bragging rights, how many podcasts I could get through, how many audiobooks I've read. I remember bragging with my friend, how many books did you read this year? It was all about how much could we learn? There was a sense of pride when somebody said, you know that book, right? And I'd be like, of course I know that book. I've read that book. Like there was just all these check boxes to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then more recently, leaning into stillness is a move.
Mm.
Stillness is a move. Stillness is an action. Stillness is something I'm going to do. And I sit on my porch now when I wake up in the morning, and I just try to do nothing for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I don't try. Because the other part is you can get into I need to do breath work. What kind of breath work are you doing? What's your journaling routine? How do you journal?
Yeah.
Morning pages? Are you artist way? Are you all these things? We're still trying to do it right.
Yes.
We're still trying to understand all. And that is amazing. I'm all for it. I love it. I teach it. I experience it. My community is all about that. Let's share processes.
Yeah.
And we must layer in silence, stillness, space, nothingness, to be able to know what's there, to be able to attune. It's got to be quiet enough, right? For you to be able to truly attune. And that is the place I'm most fascinated with. The inner wisdom, the moral beauty, the compass that we've somehow been born with, the what I don't get when I'm not on the phone, because I used to distract myself with the conversations. I would distract myself with Netflix and all the things, alcohol, whatever it would be. Right now, I feel sober. I feel so clean. I feel so much spaciousness in my life. And I love that. I love what that's leading to. I love this elder wisdom that I feel like I'm bringing in. I'm feeling grandpa vibes more than I ever have in my life. I see other people's children. And whereas before I felt frantic and it was like, I'm trying to just do everything to keep everybody alive and do the right thing and all this stuff. And now I'm feeling much more of I can put my hands out wide and I can just hold everybody's energy, and I can see this little child over here and I can connect with them, and I can hold the energy for this man and this woman, wherever they are and whatever they're going through. And I'm unaffected, not completely, because I'm still a human, right?
Yeah.
I'm not some divine. I am a divine creature, and I'm not a right. I am God, and that might sound a little egotistical, right? But from a spiritual sense, I'm God. You're God. We're all God, in a beautiful way. So anyway, stillness, silence, space. I think that's all part of this spiritual quest. But I see it in you. I see it in a lot of my peers. I love that place that we're getting into.
Yeah, I think that's a part that is being teased out a little bit right now for me, and there's room for more of that. There's more auditory stuff going on than is maybe necessary. And so this just brings this into my awareness. Like, yeah, I do listen to music and some podcasts a little bit more than like I'm just filling space.
Right.
What am I doing that for? What would it mean to, wake up in the morning and again, not have the pressure to meditate, to journal. And, talked about this before, and you and I were talking about it earlier, but probably it's been a couple almost 3 months now that I like said, I need to clean up. Like I'm on multiple different stimulants. And so I went through the course of kind of getting off all that stuff. And I didn't dive right back into my previous morning practices, which were really good for me, which was journaling, reviewing goals, meditating, some breath work, cold plunge. Like that's a lot, And there was a period where that it all kind of unfolded somewhat naturally, even though it was, there's kind of a lot there. I still really haven't meditated in like the last 3+ months. And I realized that my practice of not filling my day with more things to do, boxes to check. My boxes were get some movement in, whatever that looks like. And I've been really loving my training. And so that's something I try to do something every day, something that's appropriate for me. A lot of it is bodybuilding type of working. I'm not trying to smash my nervous system. And so I enjoy doing that. And I try to get a good night's sleep. But in the morning, I could see, creating space and for stillness and for silence. It doesn't have to be all these things that we are led to believe it's supposed to be. If you're going to be dialed in and spiritually, you need to make sure you do all those things. And I felt very grounded and I felt in a really good place, frankly, without those things. And so what would it mean to start to layer something in that feels intuitively like the thing for me to do, not because it's what I'm supposed to do? And, you're giving me a lot to just kind of tune into. And I feel like that is a missing element. There's still a lot of noise, distraction. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Being in silence, beautiful teacher.
Yeah.
Have you ever done a Vipassana retreat or any type of silent retreat?
I've done 2 5-day silent retreats, not Vipassana, but are you familiar with Adyashanti?
Mm-mm.
He's a spiritual teacher and he was 5 days, and there were some periods where people could speak, and it was during his he would give his talks, and then 4 or 5 people would be able to ask a question. We'd have 200 people there. I never asked a question, so I didn't speak for the 5 days, but profound. Absolutely loved it. Have you done Vipassana or?
No, it's coming up.
Is it on the
I'm
calendar?
going to do it this year.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's that's part of the mission this year. So I'm interested. I'm learning from the people who've done the darkness retreats, the silent retreats.
I'm curious on the darkness for sure. And the 5-day silent was as a stepping stone to the Vipassana, but I haven't felt called to that yet. And I actually would love to go back to one of Adyashanti's, but he is no longer doing them in person. Ever since COVID, he's doing them online, which is not the same.
Not the same.
I want to tackle something here or work with something. It ties into what we were talking about earlier, but this idea that of how some men and maybe women feel the same way, but let's just say from my experience that when my wife leaves for a week or a couple weeks, she was in Egypt for 3 weeks, like my nervous system is more regulated. And I feel I choosing my words so carefully here, but we'll work through it. Life is just easier. I feel a lot of freedom. And I had tried to articulate this a while back in a way, and the word freedom was really I got kind of called out for that one, and I couldn't articulate it well, and so it didn't go so well. Freedom, like, you want freedom? Like, it's not like that, but like it is like
Mm,
men, I think, strive for some sovereignty or freedom, or and I would love for I would love for your thoughts on this, because I think you've had a similar experience.
yeah. Yeah, it was, a little over a year ago, Tatiana did 2 months in Peru, and she was studying, with the Shipibo tribe to learn how to serve ayahuasca, and it was 2 grueling months for her down there, and a lot of respect for what she what she endured.
Mm.
It was not glamping. It was tough. And that 2 months, we were madly in love. We had this beautiful connection about once a week when she could walk from this remote village 45 minutes to a place where she could get a cell phone signal and call me. And we would talk for an hour about her experience over the week. And I remember telling my buddy Tim, I'm so in love with Tatiana right now. It's beautiful. Like, I love her more now at a distance. I love her the most when she's the furthest away from me. And that brought up the question, why? Like, what's changed? What is happening here that there's so much love present? So sends me off on a exploration to understand what that means. And she came back from that trip. So I had not landed on the answer. I was in the inquiry, but she had come back from that trip and we got into a big fight. And I ended up months later being on a front row dad's retreat. I went in early. I was in Miami, just walking the beaches, just getting myself prepared for my event. Had my voice recorder out and I was just talking to myself, right? Having a conversation, capturing it in the voice recorder. And then something hit me profound. And it was that my happiness was not as the result of her being gone. It was the fact that I was present. So it wasn't her absence, it was my presence. And so that led me on the discovery of who am I without Tatiana. And that led me to understand boundaries. What I recognized was that because I didn't have strong boundaries, right? I was unable to be in the presence of Tatiana because I didn't understand what boundaries were or how to have them in a healthy way. So she was the perfect medicine for me. She was the one that needed to show me that what I needed to be able to do was hold myself, have strong boundaries, know my truth, be able to speak my truth to her. And I previously couldn't do that in her presence.
Mhm.
And now I can. And so now we can be together. Now I can't control how she'll respond to my truth or my presence, right? That's her dance. So I can do my dance move on the dance floor, but she has to be willing to follow. She has to be willing to engage in the dance also. So for us, this ended in a very positive, outcome. I will call positive, like our family is doing great, our relationship is great, but it might lead to separation for people or further rupture if somebody's truth comes to the table and it's not been there in a while and somebody reacts to it and they don't love your truth. That could also result in a bigger rupture.
And so, why do you think it is that we're able to be present in the presence of other people, but oftentimes not with our most intimate partner? What do you think that it's all about?
For me, I can only speak for
Yeah.
myself. And that is that I cared too much about what their reaction was going to be. Right? I care too much. I'm too attached. I put too much weight on it. I think with other people, it's like, I'm just me. And if it doesn't work out, but with a family, with the weight of a marriage, with the weight of children, holding a family together, there's a lot there. And so to me, that's what's different. I crave her approval. I want to win her heart more than anybody. I want her to be impressed. I want her to be happy. And yet fail to remember sometimes that the key to that occurring is for me to truly be okay myself. And so
Mhm.
being really honest again was part of the dance that I needed to bring to her, was my truth and my honesty. And I hadn't been doing that. So I did the same thing with Tatiana. I was massively attached to her vibration. and whether she was okay or not. And when she wasn't okay, I was not okay. If we were not okay, I was not okay. And so just what happened recently when she got dysregulated and I was able to stay in my body because I see her through God's eyes, now all of a sudden we do a different dance. But it's, can I be truthful with myself? And what is a boundary? So I know you've done a lot of work in this space, but for me, it didn't hit me until last year. And again, I'm 49. I've been in this space of marriage work, parenting work, as an expert, if you will, for decades, right? I've been in this space. So I lead a men's group. I've interviewed 450 people on these subject matters. I've read hundreds of books. I've had lots of coaches. I know the best people, the experts in the industry, right? And so there's a lot that's there. And I was going to make a point and I forgot what point I was going to make about this. Maybe it'll come to me. It was around truth and truth telling and really understanding, but I forgot where I was going with that in all my bragging about how many people I know.
I love it. You're human. Fuck.
I lost my place. Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, it'll come back to you.
It will.
I trust. You have done all this work and you've created.
Oh, I know where I was going.
Let's hear it.
I know where I was going. Boundaries. Yeah. And what I was saying was that boundaries for me, even though I had read books on boundaries, I read a boundaries book a decade ago, was that boundaries are not for other people. They're for me. So when I put out a boundary, it would be like, I would say to, in our relationship with Tatiana, like, this is my boundary. You're not allowed to talk to me that way. Right? She'll say something to me and I go, you can't talk to me that way. And then I would think, I'm going to say it all the ways that all the counselors have always said, like, it's my feel, it's, this is my request. This is like, I would just do all the right things. And I would say, so this is a deal breaker for me. This is not okay. You can't say that to me. And then she'll say it again another time. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like I literally, we covered that, this whole thing. Right. And what now happens is if Tatiana gets super activated, I can say to her, I really love you. And I can see that you're activated. Like, this really upset you. And I say it genuinely, like, not condescending. It's another way to say that, but I say it genuinely. Like, I can really see this upset you. I didn't mean to upset you. I am not going to participate in a conversation like this right now. So I'm going to take some time and I'm ready for you. You take some time. We'll get back together and get back to this. In the past, I would have stayed in it, right? And I would have been activated and trying to control her. And now the boundary is so I know how to act. I know when to walk away. I know when to disengage. I have rules for myself. I can't control. So I say to her now, I go, you can talk to me any way you want. That's your right. You're a woman. You can talk to me any way you want. But my reaction, I get to do what I want with that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I'm not trying to tell you don't talk to me that way, but I am trying to tell you, if you talk to me that way, here's how I'm going to react. And this is what I'm going to do because I'm in control of myself. You do you, I'll do me. But if A happens, this is going to occur on my side.
It's like you're completely empowered versus being like at the whim of somebody else and they're just.
And it's understanding that I don't have control over her.
Yes.
The one thing, if I could tattoo it on my arm on this, right, is I cannot control Tatiana. And the minute I try to control her, that it all falls apart. That is where it all falls apart. Control. Different than influence, different than leadership, control. Very different. I'll give you a great story.
Of course.
All right. I got a great story for you. One of my greatest lessons. We're in Florida with some friends, Osborne's, and in the Nikolaevs. And we're walking a beach, Tatiana and I, just the two of us. The rest are back at the house. And I was bringing something up to Tatiana. I thought this is a great moment to bring up something a little bit heavier. Just the two of us walking a beach. I'm like, hey, babe, can I talk to you about something? It's pretty important. It's been on my heart. And she's like, yeah, babe, of course. I said, okay, cool. And I start telling her. And about 60 seconds after I start talking, opening up my heart, pouring it all out, she sees a shell. And she's like, oh my God, would you look at this? And she picks it up. And she's like, this is so pretty. And I'm like, just go. I'm like, And I'm like, okay, yeah, it is beautiful. It is beautiful. Can I get back to what I was saying? Like, I feel like I was really starting to get into it and you just interrupted me. And I was kind of playful as I said it. I was like, all right, babe, good show. Yeah. Can you just listen to what I'm saying? Okay. Yeah. We just start walking and I start unpacking the thing and I can see it. She starts like looking around on the ground and I'm in the middle of like the depths. Like I'm starting to get emotional. I might even, right? And she's like, oh my God. And she bends down and she picks up another shell. And I can start to feel myself get activated. You know, I'm like, babe, I'm trying to pour my voice goes up a little bit. My intensity goes, babe, I'm really trying to tell you something important. I feel like these shells are more important than me. And I look at her, I go, channel all of the tools that I've ever learned in my life. And I said, babe, I love you. Can you please, for 3 minutes, give me your undivided attention? Don't look at shells. Don't pick anything up. Just hold me. That's my ask. Would you please do that for me? And she said, baby, yes. And I said, okay, you know where this is going. We start walking and talking. And then I shit you not, bends down and picks up another shell. And I am like, this is how I react. This is the Jon Vroman, leader of the front row dads. I'm like, what the fuck? Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking serious? I asked you 3 fucking times. I'm saying this, right? Like with this level of intensity. Yeah. I can't, what the fuck? I go, I'm out. And I literally leave her. I just turn around, I walk, I leave her on the beach, go back. And I've got a coaching call with my coach. And I swear to you, I'm like, I'm going to win. Like, I'm going to tell him what happened. Oh, yeah. And my coach is going to be like, dude, how are you married to such a woman? You did all the right things. You said all the right things. You asked for what you wanted. You kept it cool. You asked 3 times. That is just one crazy wife you got there. Like, I thought it's exactly what he's going to say. You know what he said? He said, that's interesting. He said, so you are asking with your words for her to give you her attention. And she was telling you with her body that she was unavailable. So you made your world of words more important than her energetic body embodied world, which is where she lives. Wow. She lives in her body. She's, I have studied words as a coach and a speaker, and I have given words so much weight. Yes. And yet she has this beautiful embodied way of dancing through life that has been a gift to me. And immediately I got it. Immediately I knew what he meant. Immediately I was humbled and put in my beautiful white belt space of being a man. And I'm like, wow. That is a whole other way to be attuned. That is a whole other level of mastery. And so can I be so like my ego, like yesterday's breakthrough is today's ego trip. I've been just on that journey for a long time of like, I read the book, I did the thing. Yeah. Like I'm right. And I would even go to my friends and I'm like, can you believe I did this? And she reacted like that. Yeah. Like just validating my story, playing the victim like the best way I possibly could. Yeah. Poor Jon, like doing all the right things. And yet this human's not reacting the right way. And yet my growth was in learning how to be attuned to all forms of communication. And so it's a great example of really understanding myself more deeply, understanding her more deeply, being attuned to her. And then through that process, there's many ways truth can be revealed. And I used to think it was only through our words.
Yeah, I love that story. Yeah, it reminds me, I'm the taskmaster. I'm the one who keeps us on schedule when we're traveling. And so I've got it all planned out. It takes this long to get to the airport. Let's be in the car by now. Boom. And I noticed sometimes Peyton would go out and start picking up dog poop, or we have a pig poop, like when we're in the car or about to get in the car. And I brought it up to our therapist once and I said, I don't fucking understand. Like, I've been very clear about the time. I've been reminding everybody of what time it is and when we need to. And the therapist was like, yeah, I get that. And I get how that's frustrating. And this is Peyton's way of regulating her nervous system.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, is what Tatiana's doing, is like, this isn't too much. And like,
that's it.
Yes.
And like, she didn't know enough about, she would tell you now that she didn't hear herself and have the courage to then declare out loud what she wanted. So her work was to be able to know how she felt and use words to say, I'm actually not available, Jon. Yeah. Like I can feel it in my body that I'm not available for this conversation. And she has gotten better at doing that for herself. And I have gotten better. So I've gotten more attuned to the body. She's gotten more attuned to using her words. And we have found our way of why the polarity in our relationship has helped us. And had we not let it help us, it would have destroyed us.
I gotta say, I mean, from her point of view, it's gotta be so hard to tell you when you're ready to pour, like, to say, I'm not available. Like
that's right.
Major boundary to, I mean, and to just play in that space is impressive.
Yeah. And here's another one, a great example of if she can't say no to me at home to sex, as an example, I don't trust that she can say no to somebody else somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So if you've ever had that thought of like, not everybody feels this, but like, is my partner ever going to cheat on me? Because I've had cheating wounds in the past, right? Mm-hmm. And I love that Tatiana can say no to me. She's so attuned to her body. She's so clear with her nose. It's even that way with children. When you are raising children, you want them to learn how to say no in the home. You want them to learn how to say no to you respectfully. Of course, there's still a parent-child relationship. And of course, this is not applied to every context and every scenario. But like, I want my kids to learn how to have a boundary and say no, which is why, like, I remember hearing years ago, like, you don't force your kids to hug anybody.
Yes.
Like, oh, give them a hug. Oh, stop, give them a hug. It's like they actually teach them to listen to themselves. Or here's another great example of a child learning to trust their truth. And I think parents, including myself at times, have been gaslighting our children. And here's how it sounds. My son will come up to me and say, there's two versions of Jon, the now version, the previous version. Yeah. The previous version, my son would walk up to me and be like, Dad, are you okay? You seem on edge. I'd be like, yeah, buddy, everything's cool. Because I don't want to bring my problems into his world. Uh-huh. But what I tell him is, you actually were dialed in. You could tell something was wrong. And I just told you not to trust yourself. So your intuition's off, buddy. Recalibrate, because I'm fine. And you thought something was weird. Now my son comes to me, he's like, Dad, are you okay? Something seems off. And I'm like, yeah, I feel off. Yeah. And I can be very selective on what I reveal to him, age appropriate. Like I don't have to reveal everything, right? Yeah. But I could say, yeah, buddy, you know what? Your intuition's really good. You're very good at reading the room. You're very good at reading people. And I honor you for being able to tell when Papa's off. So thank you so much. And we've now got him to where he can trust himself enough. And I've given him a voice that last night, this is a true story. Last night, he was giving me a difficult time getting ready for bed. Like, everything else popped up. I have one more thing. And I look at him and I go, Ocean. I said, get in the shower now. I said it like that. Get in the shower now. And he just paused and he looked at me with these big eyes. And he just got in the shower and he came back and he laid in the bed and he said, Papa, because I want you to know that I really don't like when you talk to me that way. Because it really feels bad in my body when you get loud and you look at me with a mean face and you say those things. And I said, oh, buddy, I'm so sorry. My dad did that to me. And I don't love that I did that to you. And I said, as a dad, sometimes I do that. I raise my voice and I say it that way because I don't know what else to say, because other ways I've asked you doesn't seem to be working. And even Ocean's 10, and he goes, I don't know, maybe you could just like take something away from me. Like you won't tickle my back if I'm not in bed or whatever. But he's like, maybe there's, oh my God. He's working with me on, and I'm working with him on like how to do this. And this is our dance between he and I now. Cause I've raised this strong child who can stand up for himself and does what he wants. And like, I love that for him. And yet sometimes I just need him to do what the fuck I need him to do in the moment. Cause I got to get to bed myself.
Yes.
So it's a dance, but I love that as the Vroman family, we're learning to listen to ourselves and express ourselves and then hold that truth with each other.
Yeah, I love that. And I do. And I love the example you gave before, because I think a lot of people miss that mark that, oh, your uncle so-and-so, wants to hug you, and they completely, you override their intuition. And it is teaching them to not trust that.
And one more, by the way, on this note of like trusting your child, because I think it's important to try to offer balances for guys, parents listening to this or whatever, but this is just relationship stuff, whether it's parenting or not, it applies to everybody. We just started with jujitsu with Ocean at a place that my buddy Tucker Max, I don't know if you know, was going, and we show up and Ocean's there, and Ocean is terrified to go, right? He doesn't want to go. And I'm like, we're going. So there's a great example of like his body is telling him, don't go. He's telling me I don't want to go. And I'm making him go. Now he gets there and he has an amazing time. I'm watching his body. I'm watching his spirit during class after the awkwardness went away. And he was having a great time. And at the end, I said, how did it go? And he goes, and I could tell he wanted to be like, there were some great parts about it, but he went, I don't want to do it. I don't want to come back. And I said, okay. And I just was trying to listen to him and everything. And guess what I did? I signed him up. Now, you're like, after all that, Jon, what about listening to your son? What about trusting your body? What about all that? And I go, this is the thing. I saw his body in class and he was having a great time. His brain is terrified. Yes. Am I going to be good enough? How do I fit in? How do I tie the gi? How do I all that? If I do this, I don't know if I'll have enough time to play Fortnite occasionally. There's all this. So it was actually the opposite of where I trusted his body, watched his energetic state, and then made a decision for him that I thought was healthy. And I think that's also something as a parent that you need to be dialed into, is that a child could push back on you with their words and all of that. But a parent leaning in saying, I trust myself. I trust my attunement to you as a child. And sometimes I won't listen to what you say and I'll push a little bit, or this is what we're doing. Yeah. I think is also important.
Yeah. They need that also, that figure in their life that does make those decisions. Yeah. And he's not going to, for 45 minutes to an hour, be able to play some game where he's faking it with his body. He might fake it for a little bit, like I'm trying to fit in. And eventually the body takes over and is like, I'm having a terrible time. Yeah. But if he is in flow and enjoying it, no matter what he says to you, I think, and you know what? We're not always going to get it right. Maybe he doesn't end up enjoying it, but we get to explore that together. Yeah. And I think being okay, not getting every single one of these decisions, I don't even say getting them right, because it's not what it's about, but being so tied to the short-term outcome. I think that's, where I've had some of my greatest growth, is when I've allowed for there to be, is this good or bad? Well, I don't know. Are you familiar with the story of the Chinese farmer?
Is it good? Is it bad?
Yes.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So great.
Maybe, it's this whole idea that, something quote unquote bad happens and everybody's like, oh, that sucks. And it's like, well, maybe because that bad thing happened, quote unquote bad, something really good happened. That's great, right. Isn't it? Well, maybe because that thing that was great that happened, something, subjectively shitty happened. And it's like, we have no idea what the outcomes are of any of this. Totally. What happened in 2020 was fucking terrible. And on some levels, a lot of it was bad, but you know what? There was a lot of good that came out of it because a lot of people woke up. Okay. Was it worth it? We don't know. We don't know what the alternatives were, but yes. It's like, we don't know. And just having that curiosity in And when you're in it, like we were talking about before we got on, like I've been in it and I feel like I'm somewhat coming out of it, and just holding the faith that when I'm in it, that this is serving me in some way that I can't understand right now, but I know based on my entire life that when I've gone through shitty things, I've always come back better, stronger, more wise. And I've always come back to a place that's been really good. Doesn't mean I don't go back down to these other places that are maybe a little darker or harder, but we always return at some point. Totally. And so just having the faith that, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
And I think my work is to not bypass it when it's happening. And I think that was happening a bit this summer when I was numbing and doing other things to not hit what I was feeling head on. And that's also okay, because maybe at that moment I needed a break and I didn't have the tools or the resiliency to really dig into it. And I needed some space. And so now I'm able to come at it from a different angle. I feel like I'm showing up for myself in a physical sense. Mentally, I feel much better than I did 3-4 months ago. So who's to know what the right path was? Should I have been off stimulants all summer? I don't know. Maybe that's exactly what I needed to do.
That's why it's trust.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about this for a second because this is big. I was just at an event. Man, his name's showing up a lot with David.
Yeah.
We were in Nebraska. There was a really cool event there for a few hundred people, and this couple that I met, beautiful couple. Their love was so radiant, and I asked them. I said, "What's your love story? You guys are amazing. This is the way they looked at each other, the way they were talking to each other. It was beautiful." And they told me their story, and the part that stuck out to me was at their wedding, they had gotten wisdom from an elder of their life that became the wedding theme. 2 words: trust, love. Trust, love. And I sat with that. I remember talking to him about it. I brought it to Tatiana, and I had this epiphany there that is absolutely genius and spot on. Trust, love. And one of the things I recognized was that I don't trust Tatiana fully. And part of why I didn't trust her was I didn't trust myself. That if I were to say, is there, Jon, a theme of what was broken in your marriage for the last 16 years, if you can call it broken, or where was the rub? Where did the friction come from? It would be lack of trust of self and full trust of my partner. And until I trusted myself, I couldn't trust Tatiana. Mm-hmm. That was where it all came from. And I think that is the place that many, many people would benefit from leaning into, because I hear it in our community all the time, that most of the significant growth at any phase of life comes in learning to trust ourselves. That is where it begins. So this idea of trust, love is so beautiful. So I came to Tatiana and I just said to her, I just want you to know, I trust you 1,000%. I'm choosing today to trust you 1,000%. Trust that whatever emotion you feel is exactly what was needed in this moment for all of us to learn. I'm going to trust that all of your feminine beauty, and she's a pollinator. She's like a butterfly that just floats and does it. I'm going to trust that whoever you're talking with, whatever's happening, dude, because we have time for more stories.
I love it.
I got a great one for you.
Fuck yeah.
At this event. This is a great example of trusting Tatiana and trusting myself. Beautiful story. I was sitting next to a guy that he just right here. I was like, plopped down. I'm like, hey man, can I sit next to you? He said, yep. Introduced myself. We strike a conversation. Epic dude, dad, businessman, all around great human. Right away in the beginning part of that conversation, I said to him, do I know you? Have we met before? He's like, I don't think so. I go, familiar face. An hour into the conversation, Tatiana comes over. I was like, babe, meet Jared. Jared, believe it or not, lived in Athens, Georgia, which is where Tatiana moved when she came from Russia. She went to UGA. And he goes, no kidding. And I said, yeah, we're both in Athens. And I said, yeah, we almost moved there. we're going to move into the 5 Points neighborhood. Jared goes, I lived in the 5 Points neighborhood. And I was like, really? And I said, yeah, we rented this beautiful house and we were there for a month and a half just seeing if we wanted to be there. And I was telling him about the house and then he was telling me about his house. And then all of a sudden, Tatiana goes, Jared, we rented your fucking house.
Oh my God.
So we rented his house. 10 years ago, we rented his house. All we did was rent his house. 10 years later, we found each other at a festival in Nebraska. And Tatiana goes, you have 3 girls. He goes, I do. She goes, I remember your house. I remember you. I remember your girls. And I go, that's it. I remember your face. That's why I know you. And then Tatiana goes, yeah, we made our 10-year-old in your bed. No. We conceived our child in his bed. Now it gets even better. We're laughing and we're talking and it's a beautiful moment. But the best part of all is that we find out that he is business partners with a woman that Tatiana absolutely adores, didn't know that we were all connected. And in that moment, that other woman walks up, joins the conversation, and it all comes together. We realize that they're 2 business partners. Tatiana's connected to the woman. We're connected to the guy. We're all talking. They have a beautiful project down in Mexico. They have a couple hundred acres of waterfront property. They're developing a whole community and hotel. And it's this beautiful, beautiful project. And Tatiana is immediately like, this is where we're going to own property there. We're going to Mexico in December to check this out. And I just said, Tatiana, I trust you. This sounds a little crazy to me, but I trust you. I trust these moments. I trust us leaning in. I trust that if we are dialed into where we need to be in any given moment, asking the questions, hearing the stories, paying attention to the energy, we will be exactly in all the perfect spots. And she is genius at that. Because she's actually not great with time, because she's not the perfect planner and everything. She's able to be floating and open in ways that I'm not. And so we have just found this perfect balance right now for us. And it's leading to incredibly transformative experiences, relationships. But I've never trusted her 1,000% until recently.
Ooh, yeah. You're giving me a lot to think. This is going to be I don't generally listen to the podcast after I do it. Do you listen to yours?
Sometimes.
Yeah, I'm definitely
more at it to judge myself.
Oh yeah.
Questions and flow and all of that.
I'm definitely going to listen.
I realize that sometimes I ask a question and I'll set it up for 3 minutes and I'll ask it 17 different ways. And I'm like, just ask the fucking question, Jon.
That's interesting. I do that sometimes too, where I get a little bit down where it's it could be I could make it a little more concise. Yeah, I get a little bit long-winded. But you're giving me a lot to think about and to work with, in this whole idea of trust. And I mean, our relationships are similar in the sense that, I'll just say this. I'm much more kind of heady with planning and figuring things out for control. I think we all have our own modes of what we're trying to control. But for me, that I'm being called to surrender to her flow.
Yes.
And to not only surrender it, but to honor it and love it and allow myself to be guided by it. And I've had such resistance to that. I think for a long time. Being quote unquote the straw that stirs the drink of the family, and the leader, and taking on that responsibility in a way that it could be much different. Kind of what you're talking about. There's a way to be the central nervous system without trying to control for everything. And loosening up the reins, really starting to let go again, surrender. I mean, being called into the feminine of just what gifts am I not honoring, for my wife and for my kids for that matter, but particular for Peyton, what is being held in the shadows because I'm not creating enough space for that to come out.
Well, surrendering is a decision. Surrendering is an action. What you are controlling is the art of surrender, the art of letting go. And that's incredible. So that is an action.
Yeah.
That is a masculine trait, to be able to do that consciously and to be able to let that person sing and dance and move through life as they wish. And so I have played with this word containment a lot recently. Have you explored this term, containment? And it's shown up in lots of different ways in my life, but an example of this is regulating my own nervous system. I relate it to that of a baby in a car seat. So containment being when a baby is like out of control and then they get swaddled or strapped into a car seat, they could fall asleep like this. So it is recognizing and in their own body knowing they're not in control and they can actually rest with that. I think about my buddy Tim Nikolai, who we talked about earlier. He got a dog that got out of control, and he got this professional dog trainer to come in, and he's like, "Oh, your dog." The reason that dogs like so sometimes be in their crate, is that they all of a sudden don't have to be on duty anymore. So it's the containment and the crate that allows them to feel, I don't need to protect anybody because I'm just contained here. Like I can relax my nervous system.
Wow.
And there's all these different ways where the lack of perceivable freedom allows for our nervous systems to totally regulate and calm down. So it's actually quite the opposite, where we think we're controlling because we want to regulate our nervous system. We're getting the opposite result, where sometimes just recognizing that that's out of your control is the key to regulating a nervous system. And that is more attractive to our spouse and to our children. So while there's a benefit if dad's like got everything and it's thought through everything, and like there's this fantasy with that.
Yes.
The dad with the regulated nervous system is the one who's like, hey, shit's going to happen and it's okay. And we're just going to flow with it because that's the thing I can do. I can respond, not react.
Yeah, I can feel the few times when I've maybe handled it that way. And then the majority of the times where I've just cranked everybody's nervous system up.
Yeah.
Right. It's just, and
I'm part of that club.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of clubs, let's kind of wrap with Front Row Dads.
Yeah.
And I know that wasn't that came out of you becoming a dad. And prior to that, it was the Front Row Foundation, which I believe you closed down last year.
Yeah, that's right.
Be curious to hear just a little bit about that. I mean, that was how long? 05?
Yeah, that's right.
Shit, so 18 years?
Roughly.
So I'd love to just unpack that journey.
Yeah. Well, what I think would be interesting for listeners is, so let me define both. So Front Row Foundation was a wish organization that helped kids and adults who had a life-threatening illness to see the event of their dreams from the front row. So very much Make-A-Wish, but with a very specific niche. And then Front Row Dads was born in 2016 because my wife said I was more of a moment maker for the rest of the world than I was for our family. And that was true. At that point, when I started Front Row Dads, I had landed my biggest speaking gig ever of my life. And I had put out a book, and I was living the entrepreneurial dream in a way. And my charity was raising lots of money and helping lots of people. But I wasn't, I'd spend weeks planning somebody's Front Row Foundation event, and I would spend 30 minutes planning a kid's birthday party.
Yeah.
So it was just, my priorities were not in order. That's where the term family men with businesses, not businessmen with families, came from. And so the journey was that they were all significant in my life. They were all so important. I started Front Row Foundation because I wanted to be significant. I wanted to give. I wanted to matter. I wanted to make a difference in the world. And then I wanted to keep it going because I wanted my kids to be proud of me. Like I had visions of my kids being like, that's my dad. Like he started a charity. How cool is he? Yeah. So in many ways, I was doing it to be enough. I was doing it to show my kids that I was a good person. What ended up happening was that I gave all of myself to it in an attempt to show my kids that I'm a good person. And I started to burn out. So the choice to close the charity was one that was very difficult because a lot of my ego was wrapped up in being the guy who started the charity and all the stuff that comes with that. And yet the greatest gift to myself and my family in that moment was to say, this was a beautiful 17, 18-year journey with the charity. I love the work we did. It was awesome. I proudly sport the tattoo on my arm of the charity. And I'm so happy with that work. I look at this and I think, man, 17-ish years of caring for people and loving on people and making these memories. I'm so proud of that. And I'm also proud of myself for, we intentionally closed it down. We had hundreds of thousands of dollars rolling in monthly from donors. And we sent letters out and let them know that this has been an awesome journey. We love you. Here's other charities we recommend. And we're going to stop the donations and we're going to land this plane that we've, been flying in together for years. And it's been awesome. And then all my work went to Front Row Dads, which I love now. And I love serving in that way, helping men to be more engaged with at home. I think about, we help men find fame at home, And so a lot of our guys in our group are very successful men, successful businessmen, and yet they know they want to put family first and they want to be around other men that care about their families in that way. So we do talk about business. We do talk about the man himself, and we talk about family. Those are the three categories that we discuss in Front Row Dads. And so it's a mastermind like many others. And yet the primary pull for people is, I want to do all those things in life, but I just want to make sure that I'm a great dad and husband first. So that's ultimately where we are. Now we have a few hundred members throughout the US, and we do online and in-person events. So it's a joy to be with these men.
I think you've hit on something that I know for myself, and I'll just speak for myself. Oof. It's like when it's all said and done, I just want to be a great dad.
Yeah.
I want my kids to be proud that I'm their dad. And sometimes that looks like doing things like you were talking about that will make them proud of me for what I'm accomplishing. And ultimately, it's like, I just want that connection with them. I want to show up for them. I want to be there. I want there to be that trust that when something happens, when something goes wrong, that they'll reach out to me because they know that I'll do what I can, and yeah, I'm really interested in the work that you're doing. I feel like I've done I feel good about the work that I've done in those areas. And I know there are blind spots. And I'm curious about those blind spots and how to really approach that. I think I've had a ton of resources, as we were talking about earlier, whether it's going to events, listening to podcasts, reading books, having close relationship with other men to talk about these things. But largely, there hasn't been a framework that I've used. It's almost been a la carte and kind of figuring it out as I've gone along. And so I'm really curious about how you put it all together. And I'm bummed that December 4th through 6th, I'm going to be out of town for that. But that is your big, would you call that the big annual event?
That's the big annual event. Yeah. In Austin. Gonna be great, man. Preston and Alexi. Do you know those two?
Yes, I saw it. And Garen's gonna be there.
Garen's gonna be there. Glover's gonna be there. Jeff Woods, who just put out a book on AI leadership. He used to do training with The One Thing with Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. And he's gonna be doing a training mapping out all of 2025 business using AI. But again, mapping it out so that you are a family man with a business, not a businessman with a family. Damn. You own your business doesn't own you. And I remember learning that from Jay Papasan early on. He's like, first thing I ever put on my calendar is my family vacation. I build everything around that. And that's the coaching I've received in the group, which is awesome, which is most people build a business and go, how do I fit my family in this? And in Front Row Dads, we're like, what family life do you want? What do you want your calendar to look like for your family? Now let's build a business that supports that. That's the non-negotiable. This is the family life I want. cool, let's start with that. And also, like, where do you want to travel? What do you want to do? How much money do you need? Let's start with that. And then let's build the business that supports that. Because the more game just keeps guys in the busy season that never ends. And we hear that all the time. It's like, I'll come to your event one time, Jon, but right now is a busy season. I'm like, I wonder if that guy's going to be saying that for the next 6 years.
Yeah.
It's always going to be another busy season.
Always.
And we're not right for everybody, but for the right guy at the right time, they find their way in and they're like, I've been looking for a group like this forever. And it feels like when I go to a normal networking event or business mastermind, I can occasionally find the guy that's got his priorities in order. And he's like the diamond in the rough, the 1 out of 100. But in Front Row Dads, hopefully we have 100 out of 100 guys that are like that. Yeah. And I want guys to be massively successful financially. I want them to pursue their passions and make a difference in the world. I think that's great. Love that. I just don't want them to do it at the expense of their family. And I've interviewed lots of guys in their 70s and 80s, on camera, off camera, and I will often hear the regret. I wish I would have spent more time with my kids. I have never heard the regret. I left $1 million on the table in my business.
Yeah.
So I'm just heeding the wisdom of the elders.
Well, I love it. And so obviously the event's coming up in December, and we'll actually push this out beforehand. What does the flow of the year look like when you sign up for Front Row Dads? What's that package look like?
Yeah, I think that the easiest way I would describe it is our goal is to get a man connected to the community as quickly as we can. Mm-hmm. And there's like a handful of ways that can happen. So one is we have an onboarding process. We have a way to reach out and connect with that guy and say, let me show you the ropes. So there's even somebody on our team dedicated to like reaching out to a new member and saying, I'm here for you if you need anything. I could be your brother in this process of getting you connected to the group. We have programs built in, like we have a one-to-one program where a guy can opt in and we create an email introduction between two dudes and they tee up a call and we set it up, we initiate it. So it's a randomly selected connection. And so you might opt in to meet like one dude a month that way for a 30-minute, 45-minute drop-in. It's really great, powerful. And then there's online events that we host that are very interactive. So our methodology for that is there's a story that's told, an example, a case study, silence or a chance to think about it, the space that we talked about earlier, and then a chance to share. Here's what I interpreted. Here's what I'm going to do. And you meet another brother and you talk it out. Everything is about learning from and with each other. So it is not a content company where you're like, I'm going to come in and download the documents, like the 10 ways to connect with my kid on a Saturday. I'm going to find 10 other dudes and I'm going to learn from them what they're doing to connect to their kids on Saturday. And we're going to learn from and with each other. So we have bands, which are small groups, and they get integrated into a band, hopefully come to a live event with us because that's where so much of the connection happens. And then there's lots of other ways, digital threads that they can communicate through. And it blows my mind constantly of like who we have in the group, how people show up, and the fact that this is continuing to grow. And we've done zero advertising, deliberate. I mean, we do this, we're sharing the story here, of course, but it's grown by referrals. 90% of the people that come to the group is because somebody in the group told somebody else, and you're like, that's sustainable. So it's a real healthy organization. And we've got some cool partnerships in the works. We've got a book coming out next year. We got a training program that's launching. Like there's lots happening within Front Row Dads. And it's a good business to be in. And it's also from a business perspective, you can imagine like a pretty recession-proof business. Like tell me a time when people aren't going to care about being great dads through the use of technology or not, or whatever, in any political environment, whatever. That's an important role.
Yeah.
So we just want to meet more great guys. But if somebody wanted to learn about it, go to the website, click on Join the Brotherhood. They can go to a free 1-hour call. It's a live call led by members of our community. They tell them all about the group, how it works, how to get integrated, what it costs, all the things. And a guy can opt in if he wants to, after he knows all those things. And then we have a higher tier group that we call our VIPs, which somebody could apply to be in. And that group is reserved for people who are a little more integrated in our community and want to lean in even more and travel together, do retreats together, do life together, get our families together. It's pretty cool.
Sounds amazing, dude. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. You'll fit right in, man.
I feel like it. I know enough of you guys, so
You'd love them. They'd love you.
Yeah.
Because you're open. I mean, the thing I'm going to give you a quick compliment here. It's like, I really appreciate your level of success could easily put you in a place of having your ego run wild. And yet here you are trying to look at yourself more deeply and be honest and vulnerable about what you're still working on. And I love that. You're not hiding behind the wealth that you've created and the success that you have. You're like willing to step into the work still in a really cool way. Lots of love and respect for you for that. Yeah.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for leading the way.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on here, man. This is so awesome.
Very cool. Want more of this. Let's do it again.
Hell yeah.